Before we get into this episode, I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of my internet friend, someone who touched hundreds of thousands of people with her amazing sense of humor, her jokes in the face of an impossible situation, stage 4 synovial sarcoma, Natasha Allen. She unfortunately passed away on August 22nd of this year, and I'd just like to share some words from the announcement of her passing, and also talk to you about next steps, what you can do to support the family and synovial sarcoma research. Natasha was a beautiful soul full of love, kindness, and joy. She touched countless hearts, and she was a big advocate for synovial sarcoma awareness. Her spirit will continue to inspire all who have the privilege of knowing her. Any donations will go towards her service. Any remaining funds will go towards synovial sarcoma research. Quote, "Find meaning in your own life, find what makes you happy, find how you can make the world around you better." Unquote, Natasha Allen. I did not know her very well, but from what I knew of her, she was funny as fuck. I enjoyed chopping it up with her in the DMs. We had been mutuals on TikTok for years. We had watched each other sort of grow our platforms and, our friends only posts, our personal struggles. And I really admired how bright and optimistic and funny she could be in the face of truly a terrible situation, an unfair situation, and cancer that stole her wrongly from this earth. I cannot imagine how much more profound the sense of loss that is amongst her family and friends, particularly her mother. And I'd like to acknowledge their grieving and suffering as they've now have to live with the passing of Nat, who was, she just fucking rocked. She was a wonderful person. I am so sad that she's gone. I am so sad. She was so funny, not just about cancer, but she also just made a lot of humorous posts if you want to go through and look at her TikTok. I loved her travel vlogs. I'm so happy for her that she got to enjoy countries in Asia within the past year and a half. She touched so many people, and maybe she touched you too. Maybe you're a listener who's also devastated at her passing. I'd like to use my platform just to send love to her family, to her friends, and also to encourage you to do what we can. If you're able, I know that things are tough, but I'm linking her mother's Venmo where she's accepting donations to pay off the costs of Nat's service. And then also a link where you can support synovial sarcoma research. One thing that Nat was such a big advocate for in the past year was reaching out to your representatives and getting funding for so many of the medical grants and testing programs that have been cut as a result of the Trump administration. And so I will be using the link from her link tree so that you can take the steps that she was pushing for so hard in her final months of life. I will miss her dearly. I will miss what she brought to the For You page, what she brought in memes. I miss seeing her. I am sad that the world has lost such a light, and I encourage you to go to her Instagram and just see the outpouring of love, and so many people were touched by her. And if you had the opportunity to be touched by her as well, congratulations. If you're able, please make those donations. Please make donations for synovial sarcoma research in her honor. Her name was Natasha Allen. Nat, may you rest in power, may you rest in peace. And I hope it's very peaceful for you on the other side. I just wanted to take some time and acknowledge that before we get into the episode. Thank you. Please send love to her family. Welcome back, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm really excited for this YouTube video, and I'm really excited that this YouTube video is uploaded so close to 4,000 subscribers. Please send this to a friend. Encourage someone who only listens to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Music to tune into the YouTube. A lot of good things going on, like my face and occasional cameos from Matthew, except maybe not today because him bad. Him very bad. But I have so many things to say, and I just kind of want to get into it now. The Serena Williams of it all is really sending me into the ether because it's like a combination of things that I just love to incessantly run my mouth about. So if you are not in the know, recently this weekend, Serena Williams kind of launched her partnership with the web-based app called, or not web-based app, oh my god, I sound like an elderly person. It's a telehealth service called Ro, and it's, you know, for weight loss, hair. Their campaign right now, looking at the website, is like, Serena's on Ro, are you next? Now, notably, the billionaire that she's married to, and I think she's also incredibly wealthy in her own right, is on the board and has made a pretty significant investment, and she's also getting paid pretty handsomely for this campaign where she's talking about losing weight with GLP-1s. And GLP-1s, you probably heard of, like Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound. I don't know the science. That will be the recommended reading for this week, like the science of why GLP-1s work and how they work. But it's a partnership. She came forth sort of like posting videos and doing interviews that, for people who are not familiar with what it's like to have a celebrity come forward and like clearly their sponsor talking about how Ro made like a huge difference in her weight loss. And anytime that a celebrity loses weight, particularly if they were a celebrity known for having a larger body. Now, I will say that Serena Williams was never, well, she was considered fat, but we'll get into that. Serena Williams was never, we'll just leave that alone and we'll have to come back to that. You'll just have to hear me out. But anytime a celebrity loses weight, it kicks off these very emotional feelings about weight loss, which I think is understandable. But I don't know. I have a lot of things to say that I just want to get started. And I think the first thing is, whenever someone comes, like the way that oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm literally running my mouth. I have nothing but all the time in the world to talk about this. So the thing about the politics of beauty is that everyone expects someone who's living in an undesirable body or undesirable features to be an activist in their personal life and to just bear the brunt of cruelty. And I think we just have to be blunt. I'm not saying that people can't be attractive in a myriad of ways. I'm saying that there's very clearly a social beauty standard by which we're all measured by. Your personal adherence to that and the people that you find attractive or what you think is it, that's very different. I'm not saying everyone's not beautiful. I would actually be the first to point out when someone says that we've equated beauty with worth. And so saying everyone is not beautiful or everyone does not live up to the standard is the same thing as saying everyone's worthless, because to have value in our society, you need to be beautiful and you need to be by the conventional terms of beauty. And it's very political. It's tied to everything, right? When women make great economic gains, then there becomes a social pressure to remain thin as a way to literally starve women out of their abilities to succeed economically or academically. I'll also put that, let me write that down. I'll also put that in the recommended reading. But there's this, I don't know, there's this sick gaslighting that goes on when people can't be honest about how hard it is to be coded as unattractive or undesirable, right? It's this strange form of gaslighting and also contradictory experience where you are expected to bear the brunt of not being the beauty standard. And especially for a woman, that means being literally dehumanized, right? Like certain men will not. And it's not just about dating, it's also people in the workplace, right? It's about academic opportunities. It's about being treated like a human being at the bus stop because they don't find you fuckable. It's really an affront to human dignity that as a woman, you have to be seen as sexually appealing or you get treated as garbage. And I think people don't really realize that beyond the superficial reasons why someone would want to look in the mirror and say, I like what I'm looking at, it's also about, I want to live a comfortable life and a respected existence. Not being attractive, even if you're an attractive person, but you're just in an environment where like you are not the desirable beauty standard, is a harsh, oppressive way to live. And I never blame anyone for what they do to get out of that situation. And I have some pretty dark thoughts about people who want to keep those in that situation down, right? Let's get into it. Hold on, let's take a little pause. Okay. And there's almost, right, but the gaslighting, like I was saying, there's this very condescending, oh my God, this is so attractive to be doing on camera for YouTube, but there's this very condescending of like, no, everyone's beautiful and you just need to love yourself. And that's what I'm talking about, where it's like you expect people to be activists. Whenever people want to criticize the standards of beauty or the politics of beauty and the hierarchy that we've all been unwittingly forced to, they want to criticize the individuals who kind of boldly challenge this collective amnesia that like you can look any sort of way and you'll get treated with respect. It's almost akin to what I said in I think the season 2 opener in Defense of Teenage Girls, where I talked about the fact that part of what disturbs people so much about seeing young girls obsess so much over makeup or beauty is that it boldly reflects the things that girls have been taught their entire life, in a way that in womanhood you're taught to be discreet about the crushing pressures of patriarchy, particularly those pressures to be, sexually attractive to the opposite sex in a way that's, degrading and kind of debasing and takes away your sexual autonomy, but to simply be an object of desire and not a person who can feel desire and lust, or who should even, derive pleasure from it. And it makes people uncomfortable to see that so reflected, and it's why it's easier for people to shame the girls for just simply being products of their environment than to criticize the environment that got them there in the first place. And I feel that same way about people espousing their grief and dismay and the legitimate pain that comes from, I'm not pretty, I don't feel pretty, and I am not treated well because of it, because then it reflects back all the nasty, ugly things. And because parts of beauty are not within your control, like, you can alter your body size, you can get plastic surgery, but for the average person, I think kind of like the way you're born is kind of the way that you'll stay. And the modifications that I think, the very expensive, like life-changing, she's so pretty plastic surgery work, easily north of $200,000. And that's if they were conservative with the price and the doctors that they went to, right? That is not like an everyday price. And so, hold on. Sorry, there's a lot of noise control issues this week. But like I was saying, the very real grief and dismay. Oh yeah, the plastic surgery, that is very, 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 very expensive, unattainable work for the average person. And the amount of time that you need off to really rest and recover and make sure that your results heal well, like the first leg of plastic surgery is obviously having good work done, but having received reconstructive plastic surgery, I can tell you that the aftercare matters just as much as the quality of your surgeon, right? And ultimately you can have the best surgeon, but if you just don't heal properly, if you run into wound healing issues, if you get an infection and it messes up the scar, like it can kind of undo all of that work, because again, it is, pretty intense medical procedures. And so the part about, beauty is one of those things that's desirable, but the amount of work that you put towards it is not proportional to the amount of like social recognition that you're going to receive, right? We, especially in American society, are taught that you can work your way towards better outcomes. But beauty and love are two things where it doesn't really matter how much effort you put into it. Like, some of it is just luck of being in the right place at the right time to meet your partner. Some of it is just the luck of like being born with a certain body when, you know, thin bodies are very popular, or being born with big boobs when big boobs are very popular. Not that they've ever been unpopular, but when they're like the it body type. You know, being born light skin in a colorist society, being born with a certain hair texture in a very featurist, like texturist hair society, being born white in a white supremacist society when you are kind of automatically the default for by which all beauty is measured, right? And it makes people get so much advantage over something that they ultimately put no work towards, and so they want to believe that that's not the system that's been set up, and they want to do that by silencing the people who make them question that. I'm going to keep repeating this idea over and over again, that people want activists out of everyday people, because when it comes to Serena Williams and her weight loss and the commercial, I don't think I can put it in here for copyright reasons, but the commercial is basically just her saying, you know, she had done everything to try to lose her last 20 to 30 pounds of like stubborn body fat. She discovered that she had a hormonal issue. And also in longer, like, you know, promotional materials, she did talk about the fact that her doctors have been telling her to lose weight for years now. And this is also something I remember her talking about, I think back in like 2017. That her doctors just thought she was, you know, too heavy. At one point it was impacting her play, like the way that she was playing. But especially being retired from tennis and being a mom, she said she had this hormonal issue, and she started a GLP-1, which again, I said I didn't know how it works, but I know that it suppresses your appetite and it allows you to lose weight. I just don't know like the science behind it. Chemistry, biology, not my strong suit, right? But where did I go with this? Oh, right. But she's talking about this, and people have been, I mean, again, they have a lot of opinions, but people have been very critical, almost saying like, but you're an Olympian, you know, like you have this very powerful body and all you care about is being thin. And I find it disingenuous for a handful of reasons. So let's just run through them. First of all, Serena Williams has never been treated well by the public. Up until very recently, I don't think that she ever got the public warmth that she deserved. She is an Olympian, one of the greatest athletes of all times, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, someone who has broken through, I mean, just unimaginable strife in the tennis world as a dark-skinned, muscly black woman in a very white sport that for, I mean, even now still prioritize like these very svelte, thin body types in women, where you were expected to play this like really powerful sport but somehow not have like visible muscle. I mean, before Serena's time, like muscly white girls were getting called men, so when Serena Williams stepped onto the court, she and her sister Venus were taunted for a long time. And then, you know, it's not like Serena ever received this like intense outpouring of love from the black community either. Not saying that she hasn't been like an important figurehead, and not saying that she hasn't had fans rooting for her, but I remember when she started dating Drake, which, what a girl, what the fuck. But when she started dating Drake, how many people thought that Drake could do better, as if she wasn't pretty. And colorism, certainly a thing about it, but again, also her body type, like she's very muscular, she has a very powerful, wait, I'm not a tennis person, stroke game, pause, serve maybe, I don't know, the way that she hits a ball is very powerful and fast, and if I was a tennis person I would know how to say that better. And she's incredibly strong, and you can see that in her musculature, and she's been heavily masculinized, made to be like she wasn't an object of desire, when her very wealthy husband, who's the founder or one of the founders of Reddit, got with her. Again, there was this talk that like, well, he could have anyone, why would he want her, as if she wasn't this very gorgeous, beautiful girl, a woman. And I just want to detour and kind of bring up the Simone Biles of it all a bit, because I was talking with my boyfriend about this at dinner. There is a specific type of hate that I've noticed reserved for pioneering dark-skinned black women in athletics. This like very, just within the need to humble black women in general, again, within our own community, this need to like take these beautiful Black women and, I don't know, try to like bring them down to earth. Like Simone Biles is one of my favorite. I admire her so much. She's a role model to me. I think that she's incredible. I mean, the fact that she is one of the greatest Olympians of all time. She is the best gymnast of all time. There are moves named after her that nobody else can safely perform because she's that fucking talented. She is everything she thinks she is, and then triple that. She is that girl, that gymnast. She is defying gravity and making it her bitch. She flies through the air so suavely, and she's so kind on top of all that. Like, she is so humble. So many people who've met her and interacted with her say that she's like nothing but warm and giving. And I think just really an all-around class act. And so I remember being mad to the point of tears to watch her perform at last summer's Olympics and all the feats that she was accomplishing. And so many Black women just wanted to talk about her hair. They were like, her hair looks sweated out. I hope you die, because that is insane. She is doing things that people could not, I couldn't even dream about moving like that. And but again, it's about like clocking her and being like, well, your place, your caste is not up there. You don't get to feel good about yourself, sis. I have maintained that like the Black community's relationship to Black hair, Black women's hair specifically, is simply a tool to keep Black women in line, because no matter how pretty or polished you are, like all someone has to say about your hair, even if your hair looks beautiful and the only thing quote unquote wrong with your hair is that you're showing your natural texture, which is, you know, I'm not even gonna, we don't have time for that today, and I still don't have a way to phrase this nicely. Clearly you can hear like the anger and malice in my voice, to bring them down. And I see that same thing with Serena Williams. There's just like a dedicated legion of like really evil Black women who want to continuously harp on the inadequacies of these women, as if, wow, yeah, my neighbor should play his truck like a little louder. The inadequacies of these women, as if when you're on the tennis court at the highest level of tennis in the world, when you are on the Olympic stage, when you are representing your country and receiving medals and, you know, breaking records, you should be concerned about like your fashion or your makeup or your hair. As if to say, like, maybe you can do all these things, but you aren't performing femininity right. And colorism goes into it, and again, the masculinization of dark-skinned women and the way that dark-skinned women are socially conditioned to accept this form of dehumanization and gaslit when they attempt to speak out about it, or coded as like angry or disagreeable when you point out the disparate treatment between yourself and your lighter-skinned counterparts, especially when juxtaposed by the lightest amongst us in the community, and subhuman treatment by some people that's totally socially acceptable. You can be the butt of jokes in Black media and movies. You can shown to be sort of the difficult last-minute love interest, but if you profess any sort of anger about the way that you're not recognized for your beauty and your worth, and suddenly you're the problem. It's very much tied into what Serena Williams goes into. And so I just pointed that thing out about Simone Biles and Serena Williams, because it's, and also with Gabby Douglas, she kind of got the same treatment as like, you know, when she was paving the way for African American gymnasts, people just talked about her hair. But like I said, Serena Williams has never been treated well. People clown her on social media in a way that is bound to get likes and views, and you can really diss Serena with little to no recourse. It's why, for as much as I hate Kendrick Lamar, like, I was excited to see him bring Serena Williams out and celebrate her, and I did that like that part in the song when he was like, Drake, shut the fuck up about her, because the moment Drake and Serena broke up, he did continue that, like, how long has he been talking about her? Almost a decade campaign where he just exploited all the misogynoir that she faces to basically be like, yeah, fuck you. It's not bad enough that I, you know, moan and cry about all my exes. I'm going to give you particularly fucked up treatment. And obviously that takes a toll, right? any documentary about Serena and Venus, when they talk about what it was like to be treated by white audiences like that, it has clearly wrought a toll on them to know that just by your physicality and your body type and your skin color, you will never be accepted by that world, even when you're the best. And then to go home to your own community and know that you're also mocked, and to not be seen as pretty enough, to be, you know, really ugly comparisons to her sister about Serena not being the good looking one. And I think she tries at beauty so hard, and this is what I was saying about how, you know, the amount of effort you put into beauty is not about the amount of respect that you'll get back, because ultimately it's about whether your features work in that way. And, you know, she's always impeccably glammed on red carpets. She's always impeccably styled, but because she's not doing it the quote unquote right way, because people are just too scared to admit that they just don't find her attractive, and so they won't reward her for being fashionable or being cutting edge, or, you know, making mean comments about her makeup not matching because they caught her with like the flash on. And obviously that has an impact on your makeup than in the other, you know, hundreds of photos that Getty uploaded, but they have to talk about this one because, again, she's an object of mockery. That wouldn't take a toll on you. And one of the many things that people have talked about is Serena's weight. So what did you expect her to do? Like, did you expect her to remain in a body where she's uncomfortable so that you can feel more comfortable with this notion of everyone's treated beautifully? Or, you know, from another position, another argument that I could make is it's always people coming from like a very privileged, beautiful place who I see propagating this narrative. Like when I was scrolling TikTok today, I saw a very beautiful girl. She had a very petite frame, and she admitted, you know, I'm small and I'll probably always be small. And, you know, and she's like, but it's so disappointing to watch Serena Williams want to lose weight. And it's like, but you have the body type. You have the body type that people literally die over. The body type that people fly to other countries and undergo dangerous surgeries to get. How can you advocate for someone to exist in a cruel world when you don't have even the slightest idea of how unbearable that cruelty is, because it makes you uncomfortable? And then launching into this like psychobabble of like, you just need to love yourself. It is, first of all, it's extremely difficult to love yourself as a woman in the best of circumstances, assuming that you are very beautiful. It is so hard to love yourself without social reinforcement. You are asking someone to, I think I wrote it down today because there was a specific way that I phrased this. Yeah, you have never had to summon the type of strength it takes to deem yourself as beautiful in the face of everyone telling you that you're hideous and you deserve to die, because you've never been challenged in that way. Telling other people to invoke a type of strength that you will never be called upon to use, right? To strengthen a muscle that is completely flaccid on your body, you know, expired, withered away from disuse, because you will never have to exercise that part of yourself that says, I have to overcome what people and just greater society gets to say about my worth and my value as a person. But I'm going to tell that to someone else. I'm going to condescendingly, and I do think it's condescending, condescendingly sit here and say, well, you know, everybody's beautiful in their own way, knowing that I am beautiful in the way, and that I will never have to have introspective conversations with myself about, like, do I find worth in my own appearance the way that someone who is not conventionally attractive has to, right? This idea that Serena can't be allowed to discuss what about her weight makes her uncomfortable, and I will touch on the fat phobia of all this, but critiquing individuals is not an effective way to remove oppressive beauty systems, right? Whether it's, you know, minorities' adherence to white supremacist beauty ideals or people's, you know, adherence of fat phobia, because being fat is, and I've said this in past episodes, one of the still socially acceptable things that you're allowed to be cruel about. Endlessly cruel to people who don't have the right body type. And what a toll that must take on a person to suffer under that. You know, I think I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it really frustrates me on a deep level. I think people, again, cling to the individuals because they don't know how to attack the systems. But, like, what are you doing to make this a better world for everyone who's not skinny, slim, toned, slim, thick, like who doesn't have the right type of body? Are you only talking about how beautiful they are when you're bringing up someone who broke rank and file to sort of escape the treatment that they got from being in that body? Because that's not enough. If you want individuals to stop showing symptoms of living in a dysfunctional society when it comes to these beauty standards, then you need to attack the standards themselves, because I don't think the amount of backlash that Serena Williams is getting on social media is ever going to compare to probably the inner turmoil that she was facing occupying a body that she didn't feel good in. And again, that's not to dismiss like the legitimate health concerns. I'm just not a doctor, and to be honest, like people are ignoring the health concerns portion. And I think the fact that a GLP is a real medication to help people with weight loss, because weight loss is not just, for most people, yes, it's calories in, calories out, but there's hormonal issues, right? There's issues that we don't quite understand. I do know that if you've been obese, something about your fat cells and the way that it hoards fat means that it's like harder for you to lose weight than someone who has not met the threshold for like medical obesity, because it messes with your fat cells in a way that GLP-1s have been a life-saving medication, especially to people who have binge eating disorder and who have never been able to shut out food noise. And people never want to talk about binge eating disorders when it comes to eating disorders for a variety of reasons. Both this idea, people sort of, I don't know if gatekeep is the right word, but still want to maintain the image that like restrictive eating disorder or eating disorders are simply restrictive. But also this idea of not recognizing that like the type of compulsive overeating that leads, like overeating becomes uncomfortable. To eat to a certain point where your body looks that way is indicative of a mental illness that our society refuses to recognize, because it would rather laugh at people and their expressions of like, and how it manifests physically. And I have to check myself constantly for like, stop using that as an insult. I'm not a perfect person. No, but that's not a joke. I really do have some work and like unpacking my own food issues. That is not the subject of it today. The point that I am trying to make, that I have not gotten to in almost 30 minutes in, is I think it, ignores the Serena Williams of it all, but also what are you doing to make it better? Are you demanding equitable treatment for fat people in your life? Are you shutting down fat jokes? Are you shutting down jokes about weight? Are you trying to clock yourself for saying things that are just inappropriate? Are you trying to learn more about the origins of fat phobia? Do you vote with your dollar? When I say vote with your dollar, I'm not the first person to say this, probably not the last, but you should know that something I do is I only give my money to companies that I feel like embody my values. Best example is pre-Fenty Beauty coming out. Many companies would not make shades for black girls, or if they did make shades, I was often one of the darkest shades that they would make, which is atrocious. And like Tarte, for example, I just remember that Tarte didn't make anything in my shade. I will never purchase something from them. Even if they make shades in my range now, like I am petty enough to just keep a mental list of all the brands who pre-Fenty Beauty, when Fenty proved that it was profitable for a wider selection of brands to cater to deeper skin tones, that they decided they didn't want to do it, right? Every brand, or like whenever new brands launch, and like, yeah, they'll have diverse foundation, but they don't have a diverse blush. They don't have a diverse bronzer. So it's like, okay, you just kind of wanted your brownie points for the foundation, but the rest of this collection still isn't useful for deeper skin tones. I vote with my dollar. They'll never get my business, right? American Eagle is another good example. I was such a faithful Aerie purchaser. Like I had a ton of rewards. I was actually had cashed in some of my rewards to order underwear because I really like their underwear and I really like their bras. And while I don't think their jeans are super well made, in my frequent purchases, because you have to, if you do not know this, girl, you cannot keep underwear forever. Your panties need to be cotton, and you can't keep those panties for a very long time, okay? not the subject of today's lesson, but just something you should know in case an older woman in your life never told you. You can't keep panties for years, and you can keep lingerie for years and years and years, but something that's like going on your hooch and your hoo-ha, cotton holds a smell. Even when you soak in borax, even when you wash it in the sink, panties need to be replaced yearly. Also, you can never have too many panties, because you'll never know when you pee yourself in public, or when you need to take 30 pairs of underwear on vacation, because what if you pee yourself on vacation? These are things that I think about constantly. It's why I'm a hoarder of underwear. It's why I had panties shipping to my house when I saw that American Eagle Sydney Sweeney jeans ad, and I canceled my order. I will never do business with that company again, because clearly I don't have the right jeans to shop there, and that's fine, but they'll never get my fucking money again. I'll tell you that. And so I say this, are you putting your money where your mouth is, and brands that feature a diverse array of models that have a large range of plus sizes, that put plus size women and girls in their marketing? Do you speak out about stuff like that? But not just on social media, but like with your friends and your family? No? Okay. So all that being said, voting with your dollar, the individual Serena, and you can't extract this from the fact that she's doing all of this for like a telehealth company, and you know my opinion on telehealth companies if you listen to the ADHD episode. There's certainly some issues, and particularly as this country continues to see a decline in healthcare, especially as doctors flee, more conservative, politically charged areas, and people have to turn to online sources, and the way that certain crises has been exploited by companies like BetterHelp, which you should not go there for therapy. The therapists that they have on deck aren't great. They're also doing a lot of weird things with your data, and I think kind of therapy organizations have come out and spoken out against BetterHelp as a platform because of how poorly it's run. Right, and so all of these web platform or telehealth platforms have the potential to do the same thing. Plus, with GLP-1s and just the fact that it is obviously a weight loss medication, I'm looking at the criteria now for like how Roe helps you lose weight. Whether you want to check your insurance coverage or prefer to pay cash, we got you. Once you're a member, we take care of any paperwork and insurance back and forth, so you don't have to lift a finger. And then you answer questions, and I put some of the questions in like, okay, you have to meet a certain like weight and health requirement. But I do wonder like how easy would it be to try to get past that threshold if I just wanted to get my hands on some like, bootleg Ozempic so I could lose weight. Because reportedly, word through the streets is it's pretty easy. It's actually, I won't elaborate for safety reasons, but you can get bootleg Ozempic, and it is these telehealth platforms who kind of have, dubious doctors who operate the same way. If you live in a state where you have to get like a medical marijuana card, and you've ever gone through getting a medical marijuana card and sort of like the level of like medical scrutiny that they're paying attention to when you get that card, yeah, it's like the same thing on some of these websites. I don't know how Roe is, because I did not feel like paying for it. Maybe I should. Maybe that could be the thing I do for the next episode, like paying for it just to see what will happen. I don't know if that'd be good for my mental health to get access to an Ozempic prescription, though. I'm just gonna be real. But when I'm saying going where your mouth is and your dollars, so the sympathy and also kind of the disdain that I feel for Serena Williams is twofold. I don't doubt that there is like a crushing psychological burden of being treated that way in the public, and of simply saying there's a way for me to not be treated this way, for me to look at my body and feel good about myself and not have to fight against society and against the negative things that people have said about me for like 4 decades, and to feel good and to feel confident, especially if like this is an elite top tier athlete. If she was struggling to maintain the rigor to lose weight when she clearly has the discipline to like be one of the top tennis players of all times, I don't doubt that there was like a medical reason why it was so hard for her beyond calories in, calories out, right? We don't have a fully comprehensive understanding of like why some people maintain and hold on to weight that they do and other people don't, even when it's unhealthy for the body, right? And then again, like her health comes into it. At the same time though, is she taking her insecurity and exploiting that for monetary gain and capitalizing off of the insecurities of others. Yes. Would I give my money to a company like Roe? No. Would I begrudge you if you were on GLP-1s? It's not my place, and honestly, I do have a big problem with the GLP shaming. One, because of all the reasons that we just discussed of like, you don't know how hard it is to be bigger, and you refuse to be empathetic and try to imagine what it's like to not be treated like a human being because of your weight. Also the medical issues and the reasons why people need to be on GLP-1s, like I think there's diabetes, but also people medically need to engage in weight loss. And I think that this is a safer way, particularly for people where diet and exercise alone isn't cutting it, because you still have to diet and exercise on GLP-1s. And those things can sort of line up with the fact, like, I think some people think that because our social ideal is being thin, that like it's not also the body type, that like having excess fat isn't unhealthy. And that's not true. And I talked about this in an episode where I talked about the fat acceptance movement and how they have preyed on some of the most vulnerable people in our society, offering them, you know, salvation and humanity, but ultimately absolution for what could actually be like very real health problems by exploiting the very real bias against people who are overweight and obese in medicine, and the outright refusal, the bare minimum reluctance of so many healthcare providers to adequately investigate medical issues presented by someone in a larger body, simply because they only see fat and they will only offer, you know, one prescription that's engaged in weight loss, often without examining like why a person got to that size, what environmental factors, because like I've said in other episodes, having access to healthy foods and not having a safe way to exercise like decimates your ability to get healthy. I'm, you know, as someone who likes to run, as someone who's running a half marathon in November, and I'm telling you this now so you can hold me accountable, it is absolutely a privilege to live in an area where it's safe for me to run, right? Where I can run in my neighborhood and I can know that nothing bad is going to happen to me. I can run at dusk and know that like it is safe for me to be on the streets. There's not a threat of violence where I live. I am within a 10-minute drive of so many great parks. I'm in a 10-minute drive of like the safer part of Fairmount and Philadelphia. I mean, I think the parts that make it unsafe are like gatherings and stuff. The point is like my life is not threatened by where I go to run in the city, and that is a huge privilege, especially when talking about the people of Philadelphia. There are neighborhoods that I lived in that it would not be safe, cool for me to run, especially running long distances. You know, like when I'm going on a 6-mile run, the fact that I can so easily get to like the Schuylkill River Trail and just take off, do like a nice 6 miles, or I could do that in my neighborhood, and I just couldn't do that in some places. And it's a privilege to be able to say like I live in a radius of like so many great grocery stores that offer good produce because I live in like the nice area, and so they're going to take all the bad produce to like the low income neighborhoods. And you know, it's so accessible. I can walk to grocery stores by my house. You know, that is a privilege. People act like, oh, you just need to make healthy choices, but one, it's very expensive to be healthy. My boyfriend and I's grocery bill is through the fucking roof because I like to eat produce and whole foods. And then it's also, you know, difficult to find those I mean, it's not easy, right? And so that's not even touching on all the, back to doctors ignoring these factors, like they just treat their patients so badly, in my opinion, kind of violating the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm by just not taking people's care seriously. And as I've said in past episodes where I discuss like fat phobia and the fat acceptance movement, they take the very real bias that exists in medicine to sort of invalidate what medicine is saying overall about the real dangers of like excess fat and not working out and not eating certain health foods. And they just kind of, again, this blame on the individual in a neoliberal society. Wow, somebody just slammed the door hard as fuck. In a neoliberal society, and not actually blaming like the systems that the individual is subject to, but ultimately has no personal control over, you know? And I don't know. But it's confusing me that so many of the criticisms about Serena Williams are not the fact that she's like engaging in this partnership for like weight loss prescriptions online, and just the fact that it's about like the weight loss herself. And then it comes back to this baloney's bananas conversation, which, yes, it is my time to get on my soapbox about this. Every time someone insists that the Black community doesn't care about weight, an angel dies. We absolutely do, just not in the same way that white people do. White people, skinny is like emaciation, right? Like, especially if you have a lot of money, like if you are moneyed and white, you need to look like bones. And honestly, muscle definition becomes a bad thing. And you need to look like you are one, you know, turning your nose up at a salad before you go to the inpatient place and they're sticking Enfamil in a feeding tube. That's the look. And then when you go down sort of like the wealth ladder, it's about like class is really tied to weight amongst white people. And so you go down the class ladder, and the heavier you are, the more low class that you're coded. And then all their things about like money and classism. And people assume that because the Black beauty standard isn't emaciation, that it's about being thick. But I have said this about the BBL before, and I will say it again. The BBL is about being thick in the right places and having the absence of fat where nature would normally put it. I do not want to go on my diatribe again about what the BBL body is pursuing, but I will do it again because you begged me, and I have to do it again. The BBL is chasing the homegrown, juicy ass on a thin pair of gym thighs, right? Butts exist on a spectrum from no butt to gym butt, from gym butt to sort of like homegrown cellulite ass. The homegrown cellulite thick ass comes with some noticeable fat on the body. Maybe it's back rolls, maybe it's fat on the arms. When people say she has a big butt and a little waist, they don't mean that the waist is flat like a board, like flat as the palm of my hand. They mean that the waist is much smaller and the fat isn't as pronounced as the fat on the back side. When people talk about gym butts, it's like that lifted, firm, muscly booty that you can't really get without, you know, having some bigger legs. And that doesn't mean that your legs are huge or like bodybuilder legs, but you don't have thin, thick legs and a giant ass at the gym unless you have gotten an enhancement or work done. And the thing about these BBLs is it says, okay, let's take the undesirable parts of the body, the parts that are obviously fat, suck them out and stick them into the part where we want to see fat. Whenever people talk about like, oh, our video vixens were always thick, as someone who has always been a consumer of video vixens, I look at those girls from the early 2000s and those girls were slim. They just had big asses and boobs. And again, the white beauty standard at the time was like anorexia nervosa starvation. So if, well, anyone looks fat to someone who is standing next to someone who's 80 pounds. But that doesn't actually mean that they were big. They were still small, below average small. They just had blessed assets, ha ha ha. And yeah, I just, you know, and get fat in a Black family and see how people treat you. Get fat in a Latino family and see how people treat you. Not well, I'll tell you that. So this myth about like, well, she doesn't want to be thin. And so I mainly wanted to use this to get my point off. Did I even make the point that I wanted to make? Hopefully, we're 43 minutes in. That Serena Williams, like, yes, as an individual, I feel for her, but then talking about voting with your dollar and like this Roe thing, I don't know. And then of course, like the perpetuation of like this is one of those things that's like you have control over by kind of rejecting ads that seek the pursuit of health as this very emaciated ideal. Although I will say, looking at her picture, she is not that. She's still, I mean, she still looks very muscular, and I wouldn't even say that she looks like skinny. She looks more like built skinny. So she's not giving like feeding tube tease. She's just giving smaller than she was. So I don't know why there's this like shock. Well, I know why there's that shock and backlash, but I don't know. And weight is such a personal issue, especially if you're a woman, because it's something that you're just constantly trained to feel bad about, particularly as this like very, you know, we're going back to emaciation. And again, part of it is that like health and wellness have become virtues that are, well, one, they become things that are virtues, and then two, virtues that are very difficult to obtain if you don't have some level of like monetary comfort in your life. Like I can make healthy food choices because I don't live in a food desert and I have access to those healthy foods that I could not have if I go to the neighborhood that's literally, you know, 10 minutes away from me. And it's like, okay, the grocery store in this neighborhood, like the Aldi in that neighborhood does not have fresh produce or fresh meat. The Aldi 20 minutes away in sort of the rich suburb does. That is an intentional policy choice that keeps people stuck with unhealthy food options. All of this to say that, like, I get it, but I want the criticisms of Serena Williams to maybe talk about, like, the monetized weight loss. I did lose track of what I was going to say. I was going to say this whole, is it my place to tell you it's bad to be on a GLP-1? No, it's not. And I think people underplay the medical relevance of it so that they can remain on their soapbox. The last thing that I'll say is that the sort of the darker reasons for why people, particularly people who are conventionally attractive, want to continue to, you know, sort of blithely insist and shove like love yourself down your throat is the same way that the wealthy, you know, really flock to unobtainable luxury items. It's about showing your status. When I made that YouTube video, if you're on YouTube now, just click on it's one of my oldest videos. If you're not on YouTube, you can watch the behind the scenes, and you can also go back and revisit that video. But I made that video about like old money and luxury, and really like these things that are status symbols simply because other people can't have them. That like fashion and construction is a part of it, but I would not argue that the construction of a Birkin separates it so ideally from its other luxury peers. Certainly the materials, the durability, the functionality of the bag, and also the design of the bag itself I don't think is, you know, particularly inventive, and I don't think it's particularly beautiful, but it will remain, I think, the status symbol of our time because Hermes has very cleverly set up a system where you have to spend, depending on the country that you're in, anywhere from like $50,000 to $100,000 on random Hermes goods to be able to get a bag, and then even then you don't get the Birkin that you want. And anyone can buy a Birkin secondhand if they have the cash, but it doesn't have the same sort of allure and status symbol of saying I was offered a Birkin by my sales associate who has been watching me buy things that I don't want in pursuit of getting on this list, because Hermes intentionally only manufactures a certain number of Birkins each year. And how it's sort of the unattainability of these bags that make it a coveted item more than the actual bag itself. And that goes through for a lot of luxury goods. You know, I think it's one of the basics in Econ 101. Maybe it's a 102 type of lesson, I don't know. Took AP Econ in high school and then never again. I mean, truly, I hope that, getting away from myself. The point is that whenever the underclass gets too close to emulating the aesthetics of the wealthy move away, because obviously it's very easy for them monetarily to sort of dispense of aesthetics, to redecorate their homes, to reinvest in different type of wardrobe pieces in a way that like the average person, even someone who's upper middle class, just simply cannot, and continue to separate themselves. And I think that there is not by everyone, but there's a legitimate anger by someone who knows that they covet this like almost luxury item of being conventionally beautiful, to watch people cheat the selection by God or the universe or whatever you want to call it to be born beautiful, and then buy their way into that. Like there is this particular anger for people who transform themselves, you know, people who go from undesirable to very desirable into the beauty standard, from people who are already desirable and who didn't have to put in like that level of, you know, I have to get up and go to the gym to get this type of body, or I have to save up and get surgery for this type of face or for this type of body. You know, I had to make all these changes and enhancements. Like, you know, I was born with clear skin, so I don't have to think about it, but I feel this like intense anger towards someone who's, you know, busting their ass on a skincare routine. By the way, get retinol, it will change your life. Go to your dermatologist today, and don't forget to wear sunscreen. This very palpable rage. And I think it's because to them, it devalues their beauty by so many people having it, right? Do you remember Syndrome from The Incredibles? And he's like, when everyone's special, no one will be. If everyone was truly beautiful, then being beautiful wouldn't be special. And some people who are very beautiful, contrary to this idea that like people who are really happy and have it all, they don't want to punch down, they do want to punch down. They do want to like remind someone that like you could never get here. A few months ago, there was I guess last year, honestly, there was a TikTok creator, and she was talking about her favorite thing to be is skinny, and she's a very beautiful girl. She's a very skinny girl, and I made a post just saying that like there's something kind of devoid and broken in her because she already has like all of this, like the most privilege that you can get from being that tiny, having experienced being that tiny before. Like there really just is this incomparable privilege, even though conversely everyone will kind of tell you that you look weird and sick. There's still this like social that you get from it, but that simply wasn't enough to just experience the she also had to dump down on other people, because at a certain point feeling that isn't enough when there's something broken inside of you, and it's made all the sweeter knowing that other people can't get there, right, for all of the reasons that we discussed. And I think some people know that like the value of their beauty would be decreased if it became more accessible. Like the accessibility of plastic surgery has certainly pissed some naturally pretty people off. And if I said that in part of what motivates the clean girl routine is obviously, well, I think mostly it was influenced by like the functionality of COVID, but then also these politics. I think let me start over again. I'm talking so fast, I'm getting ahead of myself. The idealization of a makeup routine that prioritizes, honestly, you already having certain features. Like it's hard to pull off a clean girl makeup look if you don't already have clear skin, because it prioritizes as little makeup as possible. And so if you have blemishes or textured skin or, you know, discoloration, that can be corrected and concealed with a heavy makeup application. That has been demonized because like, oh, it's not clean. Clean being, of course, I just conveniently happen to be able to pull this off because I already have a naturally pretty face. You know, oh, I don't have to use any like, you know, shaping or sculpting elements on my face because I already have it. And if I said that was a backlash to 2016, where, you know, there are many, I guess, just criticisms of like the Instagram look and the Instagram face. I love 2016 makeup, but it was also very much criticisms of like that particular like way that we recognize beauty. You know, that very specific heavy makeup look was pretty accessible to everyone who just had the time to sit down and do the YouTube tutorials, right? And obviously we didn't all look the same because everyone has different face shapes and looks differently and whatever. But the clean girl thing, that like the prize of clean girl beauty and the people who are hyped up for clean girl beauty are just people who didn't have to work to be pretty. And right now, like that's very much the flex in beauty, that like, look how little I have to try to be this so ethereally pretty, as a way that like naturally pretty is sort of rising back in supremacy in a way. And I think I said this before in a different episode about fat phobia, but I think some of these skinny bitches want to, not to get too much into the diagnostic criteria of it all, if you know, you know, but want to keep other people at weights that allow them to feel superior, which is also what I think motivates, not everyone, but enough people who are like, not like, don't even worry about it, like everybody is a beautiful body. And it's like, right, you are just saying that because if more people looked like you, then the way that you looked wouldn't be special. You're not slick, bitch. I'm on to you. Anyway, that's all I have to say about it. I don't trust corporations. I don't like rewarding brand. So on that note, I'll say that like, I liked the Cat's Eye Gap ad. I thought it was cute. The choreography is very addicting. I'm not going to dick ride any company. And I wouldn't have said that thing about American Eagle if it wasn't to take the opportunity to sort of shit on them. They, like, I think I can, that sounds hypocritical. I can care about a brand's ideals, but also recognize that like their brand, and fundamentally like they do make their bread and butter by exploiting my insecurities. And so like, yeah, it's cool, but I'll never like clap too hard for them. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just had to get this off my chest before anything else. I hope you liked this episode, and I will see you next week. Please don't forget to check out the YouTube video. I'm almost at 4,000 subscribers, so even if you listen to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, just go over to YouTube and make sure that you're subscribed. The link will be at the top. Oh, and the last thing is, somebody asked me what happened with the Black Influence Awards, and I got an email, I think last month. I totally forgot to bring it up because I think it happened around the car accident. Is unfortunately, I guess that's not a thing anymore, which is heartbreaking, honestly, because I was really excited about it, and just given how many people that I could see on the metrics were like clicking on the link, I was like, I thought I had a pretty good chance of, but I guess we'll never know. Supposedly the event comes back next year. I don't know. It was fun while it lasted. I'm not going to change any of my podcast titles. Thank you for voting for me. If you took the time out of your day to vote, it means a lot. As always, your support means a lot, and I will see you next Monday. Love you. Bye. Yes. Goodbye.